Welcome to Season 2 of Conversations with Colie podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Miller, and I'm also the author of the book series A through Z Guide to Raising a Good Human, a book series that I wrote to open up communication amongst parents and children about subjects that we think about, we hear about, and sometimes we experience, but we don't often talk about. This season, I invite you to follow us as we dive deeper than we went last year. And we get raw about subjects like relationships, grief, addiction, all these subjects that we all go through, but we somehow sweep it under the rug and make it our problem to carry on our backs alone. I invite you to check out all of our episodes and see what resonates with you and your story, and see if you can gain any insight that might help you along the way. If you haven't heard of us before, you can enjoy Season 1 by visiting our website at conversationswithcolie.info. Colie. Today we are doing something different. I am welcoming a panel to discuss situations, emotions, things we all go through but maybe don't speak about. Today I welcome two mothers and two daughters to talk about the real meat and potatoes of the mother-daughter relationship. Please welcome moms Wendy Babcock and Kelly White. And welcome daughters Jennifer Babcock and Abigail White. Moms, introduce yourselves, who you are, what you do, and what is your life mission. Wendy, you can go first.
Wow. Okay. Hi, I'm Wendy Babcock. I'm an international and TEDx speaker, author, and speaker trainer. My life mission. Wow, that's a big one. I think to make an impact, to make an impact and create a legacy, obviously for my kids, and just make a difference in the world.
I like it. Kelly?
I'm Kelly White. I am a podcast co-creator and producer, speaker, author. And with the mother-daughter journey, we want to also make an impact. We want mothers and daughters to really see each other, be there for each other. And I think if they can really learn how to talk to each other, then the world will just be a better place.
Agreed. All right, ladies, back at you. Abigail, you first.
Yes. Hi, everyone. I'm Abigail White. I am also a podcast co-creator, licensed communication coach, as well as
that too. Yeah.
That too. Yes. So, and everything that Kelly said about the mother-daughter journey's mission, absolutely. But I also, part of my mission within that is to help raise awareness for adolescents, teens and adolescents on the dangers of masking, how that can be enhanced by mental illness and just mental illness awareness in general, to really open up and to get that connection with their mothers. So.
Wow, thank you for that. Jennifer.
Yes. I'm only 27. I'm Jennifer. What do I do? I create art. That's kind of what I do. I try to do for the most part. I'm very blessed that I get to focus on what I enjoy and what brings me happiness, because my family is so supportive, especially my mom. And my boyfriend are wonderful. And I think my life's mission is mostly just to try and be kind to people and to bring them happiness. That's kind of what I do. I like to make art that makes people feel happy or feel something, because it's all my emotions too.
I think that you actually do that quite well, because I've seen your art and there's a lot of huge messages in your art. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
All right, daughters, icebreaker question time. Jennifer, we're gonna start with you this time, okay?
Yep.
Describe your mom in one word.
Well, my very first thought was sparkly.
Ooh,
Love it.
I
Was my
love
very
it.
first thought.
I think it's actually quite accurate. Abigail, your turn.
Warm.
Nice, nice.
Warm is the first thing that came to mind.
All right, mothers, it's time for the daughters. Wendy, you first. Describe Jennifer in one word.
Oh boy. The word that comes to mind with her is soulful, because I just feel like, her soul just shines right through her.
I like it. I like it. Kelly?
Resilient was the first thing that came to mind for me.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I like that. And you know what I like is I like the reaction. I like
I've never once kind of thought myself as resilient. So
That's amazing. Thank you, ladies. So let's start with moms. Let's go with Kelly first. Summarize your relationship with your daughter.
Oh boy.
can that be done?
I don't really know. Yeah. My relationship with Abigail is it's so much. We're best friends, we're business partners, we are confidants, we're mother-daughter, we are combatants.
Sometimes.
It runs the gamut of all the emotions, which is why I love it so much.
Yeah. Wendy?
Oh, I was thinking with Jennifer and I would say I would describe our relationship as evolved. We have come so far in our relationship, from battling it out through high school sometimes to, being able to really talk and really like discuss the hard things that I don't think we could have before. And so I would say our relationship, just in a brief word, is really evolved.
Yeah, I like that.
Love it.
Jennifer?
I would say blossomed. Like I think that I feel like the road that we've traveled at this point, looking back, it makes sense now. I kind of like, when a flower grows and they have like the little bulb at the top, and then it doesn't really look like anything, and then suddenly one day you look at it and it's open. That's kind of what I feel like my relationship with my mom is that all of a sudden I just feel like it blossomed and we clicked, and I don't know, like it took a lot of work to get here, but I would say bloomed, blossomed.
I love it. Abigail?
Yes, I think Jennifer's gonna make me cry at some point during
I
this.
know she's an artist with her words as well.
Oh man. I would describe my relationship with my mother as with my mother with my mom as genuine and strong. And I mean, I'll echo what Jennifer said too, is that it took a lot of work to get there, but it's the most genuine connection I've ever had with anyone in my entire life. And it's shown me how to have a genuine connection with others. So I can always rely on it.
I love that. I love that. And that's exactly it in a nutshell, is that the mother-daughter relationship is all of those things and then some. It's not easy. It's like a lot of relationships.
No.
It takes work. It's hard. And you go through things. And we should be able to talk about those things openly without judgment or negative emotions attached to it. And so I really thank you all for being here to really kind of be honest and raw about what this relationship really is about, because it's all those big adjectives that we just were talking about. And like Jennifer said, it's like a flower that starts from nothing and then it blooms and it blooms. So thank you. Have you ever had an outside source try to disrupt your relationships? If anyone has ever had that, please, whoever wants to go first.
We want to go
Go,
first?
Abigail. I mean, you're dying to talk, so go ahead, Abigail.
Oh man. No, I mean, we've had extended family that has, and granted, our relationship hasn't always been perfect, because no relationship is. And like we were saying, it's taken a lot of hard work to get to this point. But some extended family members in the past had tried to persuade us that our closeness wasn't normal or healthy. That we were too close, that we shouldn't be best friends, that we should only be mother or daughter. Like there needs to be a boundary, and God, they're so wrong. Just saying. But so yes, we've definitely had that. And with it being other family members too, who we considered, part of the unified front, I guess. I don't know if that's the right way to put it, but it was hard to identify whether they were right or right. We really had to take a good look at our relationship. And yeah, there were some things that needed to be fixed for sure. We would talk about codependency sometimes, and that was a part of our relationship,
Yeah,
definitely. But overall, no, I would like to say they were wrong, and that we can be mother and daughter and best friends and coworkers and have it all. So,
yeah. Wendy and Jennifer, do you have anything that you would like to share?
Mom, if you want to go first, that's okay.
No, go for it. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I was gonna say that I don't know if Mom has experienced this, but I've definitely experienced attacks on my, like, people trying to make me think my mom wasn't as good a person as I felt that she was. That is a thing that has existed in my life, and for a long time during the hard years, of course. Mostly when I was younger, not so much anymore, but when I was much younger, I definitely had some nameless people that were very adamant that I shouldn't be close with my mom. And obviously that didn't work.
Wendy?
Yeah, I think too is we have a lot of generational trauma in our family, and so our communication was the go-to was always don't never talk directly to the person you have a problem with. You always go behind their back, and like I'd call my sister, or I'd call my other daughter, or Jennifer would call her cousin or my sister, and there was just always like all the channels behind the scenes were connecting, and some of the people who truly needed to connect. And I think as a whole in our family, we've all been really working on being better about it and really just kind of opening communication lines, I think. But it's really hard when you have, family with different personalities, and it's very complex, and, not listening to any chatter that's going on, and just truly knowing, I think, okay, here's where I want to go. I think truly knowing who each of us are to each other. So when you hear something about another person, like Jennifer said, there was, a person in our lives or in her life that was, kind of on a mission to destroy my character. Her knowing who I am and feeling confident in that is important to, so we all have versions of the people in our lives that are different from the other people around us. There's always a version. But being confident in that and knowing who each other is, I think has made a big difference.
Yeah, I agree. And what's funny is that you each nodded in knowing, like, as soon as I said, has anyone in an outside influence tried to directly impact your relationship? All of us can say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Starting
I think I'd like to add, though, that I don't think those people have an intention of trying to like hurt our relationship, at least not in our case.
Mm-hmm.
We had a lot to deal with in our relationship, mental illness, all sorts of things. And everybody thought they knew how to do it better, or how to fix it, or how to get us back to, normal, all the things. So I think a lot of it was out of love, but because of where it came from, it was a hindrance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So moving forward, what can we say to people who might be listening to this, who might insert themselves in a relationship, especially a mother-daughter relationship? Because mother-daughter relationships are like no other relationship. They go really, really deep. And this is someone that you look to as your role model, to be your ride or die with no one having to die.
Yeah.
What do we say to the people who may see in a relationship like Kelly and Abigail, you're too close, or your mother isn't who you think you are? like Jennifer was talking about. How do we convey a message to people like, hey, maybe this is not your message to carry?
Yeah, I would start out with assuming good intentions first, because I mean, usually the default is this is an attack from the outside. I know that's always how I used to see it. They're saying I'm a bad mother. They're saying this and this, and I would get defensive. But if we know the person who's coming to us, especially if it's family, assume good intentions and just make it clear. Say, I know you're coming to me with love and out of concern, and I really appreciate it, but I really want to keep this between my daughter and I to work on our relationship, in the way that we do it best. I would just keep it nice and simple when possible.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think my answer is a little, I mean, I agree with you, Wendy, but it's a little different in the respect that I think it all comes from within. I don't think that we can control what other people are going to do and what other people are going to say. Even when we talk to them in a very compassionate way, people, they hear their own thing, right? They have their own life experiences that they hear through. So my thing is work on yourself and your relationship with your daughter. You guys know each other best. And then be compassionate in the people that are interfering or thinking that they know best, and do what you have to do to keep your relationship strong.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah. Daughters, do you have anything?
I mean, for me, my thought was actually along the same line as Wendy's, where I would think if somebody were trying to, right, because they probably are coming from a place of love. I would thank them for that. Like, thank you for, you're showing that you care. Like, I understand that this isn't necessarily an attack, but every relationship is, like we say all the time, every relationship is a snowflake. And, I thank you for your input, but this is something that is between the two of us, and every relationship is a snowflake. So please let us handle it.
I like that. Jennifer?
I was going to say that for those people who see a mother-daughter relationship, and because I've been on both sides of this coin of being in having a relationship with my mother that someone, isn't necessarily very happy with, and also being the person on the outside of a mother-daughter relationship and wondering, what can I do to help? Like, all I want to do is help them. But the reality is that I can't. It's not my place. It's not my position. I can't. When you're in that role as kind of, the third wheel, all you have to really remember is that all you can do is reach out to them with kindness and let them talk about it. If they want to talk about it, leave them alone when they want to be left alone. That it's not your place to try and fix problems that are not your problems to fix. And I think that's just my perspective on that, because I've been on both sides of that, and it does come from a place of love, but I've been had to get yelled at a couple times that, hey, well, not yelled at, but like, hey, calm down, you're good, let us figure it out. Like, I've been that person. And I think that, I don't know, just remembering that they are individuals who have a long relationship, a long story. They've been building the story for a long time. And you're coming in on, one small footnote in a chapter of this, 1,000-page book. So it's just important to remember that if they seek you out and they want to talk about things, great. If they don't, that's also okay too.
So come from a place maybe of holding space.
Yes.
And trying to fix. I like that. Thank you. Thanks. So daughters, this one's for you. Do you view your relationship with your mother as a what to do or what not to do viewpoint? So for me, I talk a lot about viewing my mother as a what not to do. So girls, whoever wants to go first.
do you view your relationship with your mom as a what to do or what not to do manual?
I'll Jennifer, if you don't mind, unless you
Go right ahead.
I actually view it as both.
Okay.
So I've been blessed to have a mother who's shown me what not to do. But I've also been blessed to have a mother who has grown, and I've been able to grow side by side with her and go through this journey together. And so now she's been able to show me what to do. And so it's kind of nice actually to say, I've seen both. I've seen both sides of the coin. At first, she told me what not to do, and it wasn't working, right? So that was part of our journey, is what she was passing down, what was passed down to her, and what she was passing down to me just was not working for me at all. I couldn't do it. I couldn't conform. And lo and behold, mental illness played a part and really, really, really shook our foundation. And that's when we both, what do you say? That's the day life turned on a dime. And
That was the day life turned on a dime.
life turned on a dime, and the growth journey began, and we were able to do it together. And she's been walking a couple steps ahead of me, showing me what to do ever since then. So
I love it. Jennifer.
Honestly, I'm gonna have to echo that. I feel the same way. It's kind of a both, because I don't know. I guess I also got to experience watching my mother grow as a person, and I think that is such a blessing.
it's so cool.
It's a wonderful feeling to know that, I don't know, that I got to see her become the person she is today. And like now I feel that a lot of our experiences together are me going, Mom, help me. You know what to do. Like, you know how to do these things, and I have no idea. And like, thank you for helping me. And then in the past, like, we had our differences, we had problems, again, a lot of mental health stuff, and we really didn't know, we didn't have the words for it way back when. I say way back when as if I'm not only 27.
It feels like way back when.
I love
get
it.
Don't worry.
It's been a tall mountain.
To be honest, it feels like a forever ago. Like thinking of my mom as the what not to do, that version of her seems like a forever ago. Like it doesn't feel real anymore. Like I learned from things, but like I don't think that version of her really exists anymore. Now it feels more like we've moved into Mom, help me. I don't like, I feel comfortable in that relationship, that we can talk about things, and that, I don't know, I have so much to learn from her, and I learn so much from her on a regular basis. But yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and that's your flower is blooming, and
Yeah.
that's the blooming stage you're in. Moms, how about from your moms? Were your moms a what to do or what not to do, or both?
Well, if you don't mind, I'll go first, Kelly. I would say mine was more of a what not to do in most cases. There was good, of course, there was good, but her generation was a lot different from mine. You know, she's the baby boomer generation, you know, in the working, you know, kind of, they want to have a career, do their thing. Kids were kind of a second thought. So I always felt like, you know, she was always number one in her life, and everybody else might be on her radar. I would say it was definitely more of a what not to do. You know, I mean, there was my stepdad who she married, you know, there was abuse there, and she didn't stop it. And so then just pretending like that didn't happen, you know, which was also really hard. You know, so trying to take, you know, my childhood and how I was raised, and trying to figure out what good things I could take out of it for my kids. And of course, we all make mistakes. And then, you know, how can I change the patterns and what happened to my sister and I growing up? You know, what can, you know, but again, there were also good things. Like my mom, there was a lot of things she just led with her whole heart. She was a very kind person, you know, so it was it's a kind of a Jekyll and Hyde situation in some instances where you're like, oh my gosh, I just want to strangle this woman. But then it's like she does something so kind and generous. You're just like, oh my gosh, how did I ever have a bad thought about her? Now that she's gone, it's even harder. I still struggle with that, but it's still a bit of a combination, but I definitely weigh heavier on the what not to do, unfortunately, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Kelly?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the both as well, but more like Wendy of a what not to do, in the respect that ego's in the way with her, right? And that's my perception on it. My mother is a wonderful person, and I have so many awesome memories. I mean, the holidays, and she would go above and beyond to make everything perfect. But she also has a mental illness, OCD is, so everybody had to go above and beyond, right? So there was a lot of things that she just wasn't aware of. And again, it's generational. We didn't talk about mental illness. We're just like breaking that barrier now. Abigail and I are very loud and proud about talking about mental illness, but that's still a problem for my mom. Like, don't talk about things that she doesn't believe in. She's been able to control it in all of the things. So yeah, I lean towards more of a not what to do, because a lot of things get swept under the rug, and you that generation, you keep your problems in the closet and you just show the perfect side, which has been really detrimental to our youth.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. That's part of the reason why this podcast exists, is to not sweep things under the rug. Can I ask some questions about the mother-daughter relationship in terms of the mental illness side? Are you girls comfortable?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Because I think that there's a lot of parents that struggle with kids that struggle, right? So whoever wants to go first, can you share a little bit of your mental health journey together and how that impacted your relationship?
I mean, this is a topic Abigail and I are pretty comfortable with. So Wendy, if you don't mind us
Go
going
for it.
first.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you mind if I also, something you just said, Nicole, about parents struggle with children who struggle. And I also want to recognize that often the parents are struggling as well, but it hasn't been talked about or recognized or diagnosed because these things are genetic, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I just want to like throw that validation out there to the parents who also are probably going through struggles, and now it's reflected in their children,
Right.
and they can't look away from it. And
Great
I think
point.
that's what's happening.
Well, and also let's normalize it. 1 in 4 people are struggling with a mental illness in the United States.
Right.
It's not an obscure thing. So
Right.
for us, my mom has OCD. She knows she does, and she controls it how she feels best, right? She controls her world because she can't have things out of place or out of control, is against medication and is against talking about it. I also have OCD. I have clinical depression, anxiety, have had a nervous breakdown. Like, all of these things have happened. Abigail, when she was a senior in high school, had a plan to take her own life because she was masking all of the things that we didn't look at. We were sweeping under the rug and just thinking they were personality flaws. And why can't we just be better?
Too sensitive, too dramatic,
All of the things.
overreacting.
And so for us, I would say the first 5 years of this journey, we listened to a lot of exterior voices. Just get back to normal. Just get it fixed. If it's a problem, don't talk about it, fix it. Not figure out how to live with it, but fix it. Medicate it, all the things. For the second 5 years, we kind of invited it to the dinner table and said, all right, let's get to know you and how can we coexist together? In the chapter of the book I wrote, in Shining a Light on Grief, I talked about how living with mental illness is a dance. Sometimes mental illness takes the lead, and sometimes you're in the lead. And you have to figure out what triggers the mental illness to take the lead so that you can become more aware of it each time. But when it does take the lead, you got to just sit back and give yourself time not to fight it, right? You got to feel it, you let it do what you need to do to get it back under control before it spirals out into things like suicide, nervous breakdowns, and all of that. So that's our journey with mental illness. And since we've invited it to the dinner table, it doesn't take the lead very often because we've learned how to live with it and invite it in as a friend.
I like it.
That's awesome.
Abigail,
I mean, that's a very well summarized.
yeah.
What do I want to add to that? Since we've invited it, I love the way that she says, we invited it to the dinner table and we started to actually talk to it. And oddly enough, I've become friends with my mental illness, if that makes sense, because it has provided me with a lot of unique abilities, right? So it's not like we always look at it as like this. Yes, it can be a challenge and a difficulty, but it can also be a blessing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think because of it, it's made I'm much more open and compassionate to others, right? And I don't know. I think
Just keep talking about it.
The more open I've become with it as well, I've come to realize that people need us to talk about it. Because whenever I do, and whenever I am open about my journey and my struggles and challenges with mental illness, I always get at least one person who responds with, "Oh my gosh, yes, I've been there." But they're not able to say that unless we take the lead.
Right.
So yeah, it's
And
all
thank you
about
for saying
loving and accepting all parts of you.
Yeah, and thank you for saying it, and thank you for still being here. Let's say that.
Thank you.
Jennifer,
Do you want to go first, Jennifer, or do you want me to?
Either way, whatever you're comfortable with.
Well, I'll jump in quick and then you can share your side of things.
Yeah.
So from my perspective, it's been an interesting journey because in our family, there is a lot of mental health issues that were never recognized when undiagnosed. My mom, especially, we could see it from the outside, but again, you didn't talk about it. You didn't call it what it was. I brought up OCD to my mom once and she had a fit as she's organizing everything on her little table, just so it all lined up in perfect little rows. And she insisted she didn't have OCD. So it's an interesting topic. So then with my own daughter, I feel like, with watching her from my perspective, struggle in school and things and trying to pinpoint what that was, it was hard because as a very young age, they were trying to tell me that she had ADHD and I just was convinced she did not have it. Hindsight, yeah, she probably was struggling with ADHD, but I was of the mindset that that's just a BS diagnosis. She's fine. She loves books. She could bury her head in a book for hours and hours. So in my mind, what they were telling me was not legit. And so hindsight, of course, is 2020, right? And so I continually watched her struggle in school. And then, trying to get her in to talk to a physician at one time. I don't know if you remember that, Jennifer. I don't know how old you were. I think you were in high school, freshman maybe.
Was this when I first got diagnosed with depression?
Yes.
Yeah, I would have been 16, 17.
Yeah. And, and trying to recognize that this isn't, she's not being lazy. She's not, because she's not doing her work. It's not, just being willfully what's the word? Not wanting to do it, and recognize that there was something else going on. And then a little later in life, and I won't put words in her mouth, I'll let her tell her own story, but other things that happened to her, and then saying, okay, it's kind of similar story to Kelly and Abigail, where it's like, we need somebody to intervene here, sorry.
no, it's okay. Thank you for sharing this.
Jennifer. I need a second if you want to go ahead, Jennifer. Just that's
It's kind of ironic that I'm watching me go through my stuff and not really knowing what it was, and thinking you were doing the best thing you could do at the moment because that's all the information you had. I went through the exact same thing with mom. I got to a point, at first I didn't understand anything, and then like I couldn't understand why we just didn't know how to talk to each other. Like that communication, we would say something, we'd be saying the same thing, but because somebody used different words, it just, we just couldn't figure it out. And then one day I after going to counseling for a little while and dealing with all that stuff, I like suddenly realized that I was only considering my own problems like to be like valid. I wasn't considering that maybe I'm expecting my mom to do things like to understand me, that she should know what I'm thinking, that she should do these things, when that's not a reality. If my struggles are valid, then so are hers, and so are yours, mom. Like it's that you struggle with things too, and me constantly asking you to go above and beyond when that's just not a possibility isn't fair. And that's when I started to really like, oh my gosh, I'm laying these expectations at your feet and just watching, like I'm preparing you to fail for no reason. I'm setting you up to fail. And then I remember very vividly the day I had to apologize to my counselor because she was telling me that I was holding mom to these expectations that were unreasonable. And I pushed back and I argued with her and I was like, you don't understand. And then me and mom were talking about something and we were talking and I was expecting one reaction and she gave me another reaction. And all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I'm doing it right now. Like I'm just setting her up to fail for no reason. There's no reason I can't just say, this is what I'm feeling. Like, mom, I want you to talk to me, or mom, I just need to vent to you right now. Like, there's no reason I couldn't just say those things instead of assuming that my mom would be a mind reader. But yeah, like there's like this moment of like, I feel like in our family specifically, people are much more open to me, the child, having mental illness problems versus recognizing that my mom does. And that's a factor in all of this too. Like it's easier for them to say that I struggle, I have these things, whatever, because I don't know why. But when it comes to my mom, I feel like that's a whole part of it too. That's why we ended up connecting when we did, was because I suddenly realized, oh my gosh, my mom is in the same boat as me. Why didn't I realize this before? Like we're very similar. We just couldn't communicate it. And I don't know. I think that's the realizing that you're like the other person in your mother-daughter relationship is also struggling, because I think so many mother-daughter relationships are struggling with this specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important thing to remember is that you're both valid in those feelings. Like one of them is not more important than the other. I get tired of hearing that. I get tired of people assuming that my struggles are somehow more excusable than my, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I track what you're saying there, because you're young, you should just kind of what we were taught, suck it up.
yeah.
Well, no, it's that our family is okay with me struggling. Like they, not in a bad way, not like they're like, oh, struggle and fail, like haha. But no, everyone's very warm to me. Everyone's very understanding when I struggle. And I do feel like that's because I'm younger, because I'm young and things like that. And like a lot of stuff from like when my teenage years, when me and mom used to go head to head and stuff like that, a lot of that was caused because we were both going through these issues. It's not because I was struggling and mom wasn't understanding me. It was because she was also struggling and didn't have the words, didn't have the understand. We didn't have anything to go off of. It was just what felt right in the moment. And all those things go hand in hand.
I agree. I'll jump back into, I just get a little overwhelmed when I think back to some of those days and the struggles that Jennifer had. So it's like, take a breath, Wendy, because it was, really dark moments, I would say, for Jennifer too. And then as a mom, that's a dark moment for me then too. And I think recognizing my own mental health struggles and the things, overcoming, childhood and domestic abuse and those things, and struggling through that myself. When Jennifer went into the second counselor that Judy, that she really liked, I also started going to seeing counseling for myself. And that I think really helped, because then I learned how to communicate better. And Jennifer and I you'll remember this phone call we had, being on the phone with her and just saying to her, how can I improve? I'm open to it. You're not going to hurt my feelings, but I need to know. And I remember her saying, I don't want to change you, Mom. I was like, no, I'm not saying that you're trying to change me. I'm saying if I do something that from your perspective bothers you, hurts your feelings, I invalidate you somehow, I need to know that. I need you to tell me that, so that I can self-reflect, because if I don't self-reflect what I'm putting out into her world, we can't ever grow. And so it's really hard as a mom sometimes, because when your kids tell you, hey, you did this, it again, it feels like you're being attacked, because that's what my mom always said. It was an attack on her person and who she is as a mother. And so it's a hard thing to get through, to get over, to finally step back and say, okay, I need to be better somehow, a better mom, and listen more. Just, not even a better mom, a better human, just to be more open to listening and saying, okay, next time this happens, I will try and approach it in this way. Maybe I need to take a breath before I speak instead of, rah, 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 you did this to me, and I think that's made a bigger impact than a lot of things that we've been through, just really listening to one another.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So moms, when you hear that your child is struggling or was contemplating ending their life, can you describe the first gut reaction?
That's a hard one. I was at work when Jennifer called me.
I was also at work, but it wasn't Abigail that was calling me. It was the school that was calling me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's almost like an indescribable feeling. Really, it's
Yeah.
You're trying to stand on water and you can't.
Yeah.
You just like, you need to keep your head above the water so that you can hold them up, but you're literally just have a mouth hanging out the top. If I could try to describe it physically, like you're just taking in air, and that's really all it feels like you're doing.
And Kelly, I don't know if you experienced this, but I felt like that day, getting in the car, leaving work to go home, I felt like I was in slow motion, but going as fast as I could at the same time. It was this moment of kind of, holy crap, is this really happening in my life right now? Is this, kind of, how do I fix it? Because I'm a fix it person, and then just rushing to get there and hope, I somehow can help. And I don't, you just feel kind of helpless, even though you want to do everything in your power, and you don't know if you're doing the right things, saying the right things. And it just, it's indescribable in a way, that feeling that you go through.
I mean, extreme fear.
Yeah, fear. Yeah, that's huge.
I'm sure a lot of why, how, things like that. Daughters, how did it feel when your struggles were outed to your mothers? What was that first gut feeling like? Mom knows.
I don't know who to go first here. I can go. I called my mom when circumstances got really bad, and I was struggling really, really hard. And my gut like drop was when I realized I needed to tell my mom. When I got to the point, like almost past the point of return, like no return. And I realized that the only person I needed to talk to was my mom, because it would make it real and I would actually have to deal with it. Because it was suddenly very, very real.
Right.
And I knew that the only person who could, I don't know, that the only person who could make it better would be my mom. And but it was also terrifying because I didn't want to have to tell her.
Right.
I didn't want to explain to her what situation I was in. But that was my gut reaction, was I needed to tell her, and it was a very scary feeling.
And just to jump in real quick, Abigail, before you with my daughter, with Jennifer, it's not the phone call a mom ever wants to get,
Right.
but I feel very blessed, I guess, that she had the courage to call me, because most kids don't. And so in that moment that she had that, I mean, yeah.
That's, Wendy, so true, because I was that child. I had no intention of letting my mom know or see until it was too late. I was blessed to have a friend who noticed when my mask slipped up, so to speak, and told the people who, like the adults, right? The principal, who then called her, and all of that stuff. And this is how everything kind of started going. But the first feeling I remember having when I was told, like, okay, we called your mom, she's coming in, and we've told her that you're having suicidal ideations, was shame. I felt really ashamed of myself, it's been we say this the whole time, right? It's been a very long journey since then. And I no longer feel that shame. That was part of the resistance for the first 5 years since that day of, like, oh, let's just fix it. Let's just, right? Because we were taught to sweep it under the rug. And so the fact that it couldn't stay under the rug, that I just couldn't, I was so ashamed. But yeah, I'm very blessed that the reason I'm here is, one, because I had a friend who cared enough and noticed enough. And two, because I was afraid of leaving my mom behind with the pain.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so.
Wow. Thank you all for sharing that. So I'm going to just say and assume that that is probably the darkest periods of your relationships. Would that be safe to say that's probably the darkest? So how do we go from the dark like that, where it's mental health struggles, suicide, and things like that, and you're experiencing so much hurt, miscommunication? How did you get it on the right track?
I'll jump in. So for Jennifer and I, honestly, that was a dark point, but we had one more hurdle to face after that. So, and that's where, after that, and I won't share unless Jennifer wants to share. She can, that's her story to tell. But we had the one other hurdle to get through before we could really start fixing our relationship too. And Jennifer had a lot of work ahead of her with her journey and healing. And I feel like that was more when we started both healing. So I think that's when I also got into counseling, was after that. So I mean, we had a couple of really dark moments, for things that Jennifer went through, and then trying to cope together and, move through that to try and heal ourselves individually, and then work on our relationship as a mother-daughter and communicate in a different way. And I always used to say that our communication styles were, I'm a very literal person and she's very figurative. So as you can hear, Jennifer speaks in metaphors and she speaks in art, and, so she sees things. Our first doctor that we talked to when I brought Jennifer in for depression, she described it to me as, She goes, Wendy, as we're sitting in this room, you see the four walls and the light coming in. She goes, I guarantee Jennifer's looking at how it's shaded in that corner over there. And she's looking at the different shades and things in the room that you don't even see. And that I'm like, oh my gosh, you just put everything in perspective for me with how we see the same things, but in such a different light. And that was kind of an aha moment for me. So.
Yeah. Wow. Jennifer?
We have, one of the things I like to say about our family life is that there's never a dull moment. There's not a month that goes by where something doesn't happen, where there's always all these big things. It always feels like there's all these things going on. I would say that the time Mom's talking about and that we were talking about previously was probably the darkest in our relationship, though. It was very difficult, and we hit roadblocks even after that, in the aftermath, and life goes on and more struggles happen. And I think that our journey, like it's really difficult when you keep hitting those roadblocks.
Mm-hmm.
But I think after that really dark point in our in my life and in our lives and in our relationship, after that moment, after those times, I think that that's what gave us the strength to continue pushing through all of the roadblocks. Because in the past, the roadblocks would have stopped us in our tracks, and we would have lost all of our progress and just floundered. And instead, we suddenly knew that this was worth fighting for. This was something we had to climb over, we had to work through. So the darkness kind of proved to us that there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Or at least made us want that light.
Yeah. And real quick, I'll add, sometimes we're not always on the same page. Like I might be in a period of, growth. I might be in a period of depression. Same with Jennifer. So we're not being a mother-daughter, even though we're fighting for the same thing. We're not always on the same page. Where she might be pulling away, I might be pushing myself into her life and vice versa, in that growth mode. So, I mean, just because one person's really working hard towards something doesn't mean the other one's ready to do it. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just saying that sometimes, mother and daughter, then we're not always on the same page with our healing journey and where we both maybe need to be, but there's a point to where there's a pivot somewhere that happens. Or it happened with Jennifer and I think there's a pivot where we both all of a sudden magically ended up on the same page and we're like, oh, okay. we're trying to do the same thing.
Yeah. I think for me, the pivot really, it was one day at a time. That's how you approach it. First off, is just one day at a time. We say all the time, the Maya Angelou quote, do the best that you can until you know better. I mean, I'm butchering it, but once you know better, you work towards doing better. And that's kind of a philosophy we live by. But I think the real major turning point for me was the day I realized that it was not my job to make her happy. It was not my job to fix her. It was not my job to do any of it. My job was to let her know that I'm here when she needs me and that I'm always going to love her. Like my definition of happiness isn't her definition of happiness. Like what I think she should do with her life is not what she should do with her life. Like none of those things that we all think of as parents, we have this vision. And the day that I realized that my happiness was my job and I was feeling miserably at that because I didn't like myself, right? I was look at what's happening to my child. I can't even help her. And so once I started concentrating on my happiness and liking me, things started to change.
Yeah. That's so true. And I think it kind of goes back around to one of the earlier questions you asked about, was my mom an example of what not to do or what to do? And if we look back on that day, which definitely would be the darkest day in our relationship. I don't know if it was, we both have had ups and downs,
Right.
right? Like Jennifer was saying, it's a mountain, and sometimes there's a little bit of a rock slide, and you go backwards, and and we're all on our own mountain, right? Like my mountain's its own thing, hers is her own thing, and we're just climbing side by side.
Yeah.
And it was when that realization happened of, well, do you mind if I share?
No.
So she also ended up, so we both have, obviously we have a lot of the same struggles with anxiety and depression, and what's the word I'm looking for? Express themselves physically a lot through stomach issues. Like that's always been a thing. And we always just kind of categorize it as, oh, we just have a little bit of IBS, or we need to, like, whatever. It's normal to be in this much pain when you're on the toilet. It's not. Okay. Like it's not.
She had to go there, but anyway.
We gotta bring a little laughter into this.
Yeah,
No.
absolutely.
And so you ended up having like terrible stomach problems, and I ended up having terrible stomach problems, and we realized that it was connected to our mental well-being and our emotional well-being. And once we kind of recognized, like, oh, we're both not well, like it's not just my healing journey, it's her healing journey and my healing journey and our healing journey.
Right.
And that was kind of when that shift happened that you were talking about, Mom, with oh, you're not responsible for my happiness. And I had to actually kind of come to the same realization that I'm not responsible for hers, right? Because I had always lived through the lens of, I need to be a good daughter. I have to live up to these expectations. I'm smart, so I should. I don't know, like all those things, right? So once we both came to the realization that our happiness is our own responsibilities, and that climbing the mountain is our own work, and all we can do is cheer each other on and provide a little safety net for when we do have that rock slide for each other, that's when things really started to take a turn. And it was day by day. It's one day at a time.
It still is day by day. It still
is day by day, of course. Yeah.
A relationships are day by day.
Yes.
We are humans. It's okay to have emotions. Sometimes we're going to say things the other one doesn't like. Sometimes we're going to look a certain way the other one doesn't find desirable. Right?
Yes, but one thing we have learned to do is stop and say, hey, this is what I just saw or what I just heard. Is that what you meant to say or do? Because, we're not in each other's heads, and we're living from our own experiences. And so just stopping and saying that to each other. I mean, sometimes it's, I'm annoyed, and that is what I meant to say. Sorry, I shouldn't have. Sometimes it's like, oh my gosh, no, that's not what I meant. And let me rephrase. So.
Yeah, that's a great point. Wendy and Jennifer, do you have anything to say to that point?
I love that. I want to incorporate that too. Like, but I think Jennifer and I are very gentle with one another. I would say we're very careful with our words. When we do have conversations, I think we really think about the other person. Again, this is that blossomed relationship. This is not how it always was, but I think we are, very, we kind of treat each other with kid gloves in a way, but there's times when, something has to be said. It's a hard conversation. We've had those too, where I trap her in a car and I'm like, listen, we got to talk.
Isn't that kidnapping?
That's
Jennifer.
I deserved
Well, it was a moment where I knew I had to have a hard conversation with her, and I wasn't sure if she was going to receive it as, I'm saying this to you lovingly, or, Mom, I just don't even talk to me, leave me alone. I didn't know what to expect. So we were in a car ride, and I just kept thinking to myself, I just want to wait for the opening for the right moment. I'm like, it's now or never. I'm like, she can't run away. She's in the car with us. And so I just like, look, I said it, I'm saying this with love, and and she received it really well with grace. And yeah.
Oh, well, as graceful as you can. Luck- luckily, luckily you were very nice with me. You were very gentle. I think the word gentle is a really good one to apply to my mom and how me and my mom communicate now.
Yeah.
It's just that it's not, I wouldn't describe it as kid gloves. I would just as like an awareness of the other person's feelings, like taking everything we've learned from each other and applying it to what we're doing and how we speak to each other. And like, if mom tells me that something or a way I say things or the thing that I do doesn't really, it makes her feel bad or makes her feel not okay, I take that and I go, okay, well, next time I will phrase it differently. I will approach the situation differently because I'm taking your feelings into consideration. And I think that's one of the ways I think that's the reason that we can have those hard conversations when they do come up, is because I do know taking my feelings into consideration. She's not doing this to be mean, but she's not like trying to control my life or whatever it was I said when I was 15.
So real.
But it's because she cares about me, and it's just that knowing that, and I hope that she feels that I do the same thing. I try, like trying to just being aware of the other person in a way, and like who we really are as people, and acknowledging that we're allowed to be two different people, and that's okay. Like exactly what you guys were saying before, and so well said, by the way. Like just that you all both have your own journey, but that you can, you can talk to each other nice, you can support each other, you can cheer on from the crowd, without, and that's not a bad thing. That's a really good thing to be able to do. Like that is good. Like just because we can't rescue them if they fall doesn't mean that what we're doing isn't good enough. Which is something I struggle with a lot of. You said you struggle with shame. I struggle with guilt a lot. It's kind of one of my first emotions at this point. When anything happens, I immediately feel guilty, that I'm not trying hard enough.
Does the word burden ever pop into your head?
Oh yes.
Oh yes.
Far too often. But luckily I have a mom who is able to say things in a gentle way so that I don't feel it could be much worse. It could be much worse. And I need someone to be able to tell me in a gentle but firm manner, I'm gonna lock you in this car and we're gonna have a conversation.
And Jennifer,
require on a regular basis, not a regular basis, but I require. And that's why
we're both criers too.
Yes.
And I have to also add in that those conversations have taken a lot of practice.
Yes.
Like it definitely did not happen overnight because like Jennifer was saying, like we've taken into account everything that we've learned about the other person, right? And we've had to each grow on our own. Like from my standpoint, I had to recognize my mom as an individual, not just mom and the pedestal that we have them up on when we're born, right? You have to kind of break that and recognize who they are. And that's the first step to being able to acknowledge and be aware of their emotions in a conversation. But part of it's also habitual. Like it takes practice to speak gently and compassionately with other people. So it's, yeah.
100%. Have any of you said something to the other one that was hurtful and couldn't take back because it's already out of your mouth? How do you work past and really squash when something like that happens in your relationship and really put it behind you, not harbor it for the next time that you're mad?
Oh, also takes practice, let me tell you.
Yeah, we put it away. It's a thing. My husband laughs at us because he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, just let it all go." But the truth is we do that. That is exactly what we do. Something happens, we're angry or mad or hurt,
because we mess up.
Yeah, I mean, we're humans.
We hurt each other unintentionally, of course. And I think that's the key, is we know deep down that the hurt is unintentional. Right. And so
Yes.
being able to say, hey, these words or that action hurt me. And then the other person is able to say, recognize that, acknowledge that, and then, maybe that wasn't their intention, but recognize that it still hurt the other person. Acknowledge it.
And we also
apologize.
we also have just like a standing practice of, okay, this is a tense conversation and we're both feeling some emotions right now. So we're going to schedule this talk so that we can go back and think about it and approach it from a standpoint of not emotionally charged and just put it away. That is something we've learned to do.
Yeah. A lot of like compartmentalization practice.
Yes.
Wendy and Jennifer?
There's been times when Jennifer and I have been having a conversation and it does get a little bit emotional or heated. And, one of us will just say, I can't have this conversation with you right now. Like it's just a boundary. It's just like, okay, let's just go to a different topic. But honestly, I mean, even when you were in high school, Jennifer, I don't recall you ever being hurtful in your words. Like even when we were arguing, like I don't really recall that. We were just both arguing like our stances on something, what I thought was best for her, obviously then what she thought was best for her. But I don't really recall using like hurtful words. I think interpretations of that a little bit, like I would say something like, well, you're acting really dumb right now. And, oh, you're calling me dumb. No, I didn't say that. That's where that literal and figurative thing comes.
Yeah.
But I mean, I feel like once we had that argument and kind of went to our corners, so to speak, it was kind of that put it in a bubble, blow it away moment. Like we never really called back to it. Like, oh, well, remember back then you said this. Like, I don't, unless I'm wrong, but I don't recall us really doing that. Like we just kind of move forward from that.
I think it was when I was a teenager and we when we first started really arguing, where we would have those moments. I think that it's less that we carried them into the rest of our, our day or the next argument that we have. It's just that we had more arguments.
Yeah.
They were more often. I don't remember the last time me and you had a disagreement. Like we've had moments we've had to be like, hey, I'm too emotionally charged for this. I can't do that. But I don't think we've had like a real like actual disagreement, even just having like words with each other, like a discussion. I don't think we've had that happen in quite a while.
Yeah, it's been quite a few years now. Yeah.
I like that you said put it in a bubble and blow it away.
Yep. She's been telling me that since I was very little. I used to lie awake at night. I would lay in bed and I would just panic and stress over all the things. I was very young when I started doing that. About like things that I couldn't control in the moment. And I would, wake mom up in the middle of the night because I can't sleep and I'm upset and I'm stressed. And she would very gently be like, can you do anything about it right now? And I'd be like, well, no, of course not. And then she'd say, then put it in a bubble and blow it away. And I went, okay. And that's been something I've retained that for my whole life. And I've used that phrase for other people. It's a huge influence on me. I think it was my first coping mechanism.
I love it.
I got it from a TV show from the 80s or 90s, Dharma and Greg. She said it in that show and it stuck with me. Dharma and Greg, it stuck with me.
I love it. Well, words of wisdom, Dharma and Greg. What's your favorite aspect of your relationships?
I would say for me, honesty. I like that we can have really raw, honest. Jennifer can overshare sometimes, and I can be honest and say, okay, put my fingers in my ear, la 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 la. Okay, talk to Antina about that. But it's a good thing because I think that honesty and trust, even for those two really dark moments that we had to face kind of together, where I had to help Jennifer in those moments. The fact that she came to me in both of those situations That's a trust. And knowing that we have that, I feel like there's really nothing else that can, come in our paths that we can't tackle.
Yeah, I like that.
I mean, for me, well, I just want to say, I think, Jennifer, you and I should be friends.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, be that warrior.
I think you are great.
So, but for me, it's all of it. I know that sounds like the cliche out, but it really is. And it's knowing that she's the first person I want to talk to when something good happens, right? She's the first person I want to call when I need somebody to talk to. And
car concerts. What? Car concerts.
And car concerts. That's true. We can go on, what was it? Like we did a 12-hour road trip one time.
Absolutely.
And we did not repeat a single song on the playlist. We sang the entire time.
Yeah.
We knew the words to probably 95% of all the songs that we played. It was great. And just so memories like that.
I like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So tell a story from the past between the two of you that was most special. So whoever wants to go first, share a special story from the past between the two of you.
I'll go quick. It's more recent, I would say, but I'm a member of a women's networking group, a connection company, and there was an event in 2021, and I invited Jennifer to come with me. And I bought her a ticket, and I didn't realize that she was only supposed to come to like the dinners on Friday and Saturday night. And I had her in tow the entire time with me. And we had, it was such an amazing weekend. We danced our butts off on Friday night. And I didn't realize this was like an aha moment for me when I realized how special our relationship was. So many women came up to me and said, I wish I could dance and have that much fun with my daughter the way we're watching you. And I was like, how? That was a great weekend.
I can build off of that, and the dancing, people complimenting us for how we can have fun and dance together. It's because we've been doing it most of my life. I remember I learned, I want to say the Macarena and the electric slide in our kitchen from my mom when I was very, very little. And I have memories of that, of learning it in our kitchen of my childhood home. And like, it's been ingrained in me at this point that I can do, so many line dances, so many dances just without, just don't even have to think about it. I can just do it because it's just something that we bonded over. Just music in general too. I love your guys' story about the singing in the car because me and mom do that too. Especially when like Prince comes on, Poison, we got it. We're great. We've got the nail thing, got all the little, it's great. Anyway. But that's a happy memory for me. That's something that that's just pure fun. And I love that I can have fun with my mom. We really have like pure joy. I have many memories of just solid fun and just enjoyment and peace.
I love that. Kelly and Abigail?
I'm going to say our travels.
No.
Huh?
I'm like, there's so many. I'm trying to.
Yeah, there's so
pin
many.
one down.
But we love to travel together. We've done quite a few trips. It's kind of been when things have gotten really hard and there's been a lot of like exterior influences. We run to the road, to be honest, and kind of get our center back. And those are always super special times. I mean, we've been to Italy together and on a river cruise in Germany together. We drove, 3.5 weeks across country and back. And so our travels are probably some of my most special moments.
I was I was thinking of the day that the two of us got lost in Venice together and purposefully with intention. It was pretty wonderful. It was just the two of us, the day to ourselves after 2 weeks of being in Europe. The first week spent with our whole family.
Yeah.
Right. And then the second week was just the two of us on the river cruise, and we had like one last day in Venice or something like that. And so we were like, let's just get lost. And it was, so we came across these little like hole in the wall restaurants and like some of the cutest little like
houses and apartments and yeah.
Oh my gosh.
It was fun.
We got to see a side of Venice that most people don't get to see. And we straight up just walked until we were like, all right, time to turn around, and GPS'd our way back out. So it was pretty great.
Awesome. What advice do you girls have for new girl moms coming into parenthood?
Jeez.
No, actually, I do have some. It's funny. This just came a couple weeks ago when I was with a girlfriend out here in Rhode Island. We were standing by the lighthouse, and I was telling her the story of the lighthouse. And then I related it to the mother-daughter journey, because lighthouses don't go out into the ocean and find the lost boats. They just stand there and shine, do their best so that the boats can find their way home. And I think that's really, I wish I had known that when the girls were younger. Like if I just worried about me shining and learning how to cope with things and teaching them by example, just showing them how to love themselves and guiding them and not trying to steer them or go out and fix things for them, life would have been a lot easier. So yeah, be a guide and not a director, I guess, would be my advice.
I like that. Abigail?
She's like, I'm not a mom, I can't do it. No.
But I mean, if you were to guide a mother coming in from a daughter's perspective, what would you say to a new mom of a new daughter?
Listen.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a lot of my experience anyway, a lot of the issues that popped up in our relationship were not necessarily even our issues. They were kind of either generational or societal pressures that we put on our relationship and on ourselves. And I think from listening from a very young age to what your daughter needs is key, instead of, because it kind of falls right in line with what she was saying about being a guide. Listen and be a guide instead of trying to direct or steer, because that's when those expectations start to become as the mother, you're steering with the intention of your daughter living the best life possible and finding happiness and being loved and getting all of the things that she deserves. But what ends up happening is these expectations get put on her shoulders of who she thinks she's supposed to be, and she's not able to find herself. So listen.
That's a great. Wendy?
2 words came to mind: patience and therapy. I think
Therapy, yes.
Amen.
as a mother, healing yourself will be the biggest gift you can give to your daughter. And then letting her know that, it's okay to have struggles and, mental health things that, therapy is not a bad thing. Therapy is a very positive thing. And if she watches you heal, that's going to help her heal, especially with those of us coming from generational traumas.
Yeah. Jennifer?
I would say, talk about feelings. Make sure that they know what those are and that they exist and that they are theirs, that their feelings are their own, and that's okay. And that even when you have negative feelings, they don't have to control your entire life. Like, I think that one of the best things you can do for daughters, and most for kids in general, that mothers could do for their daughters, is talk about feelings. Have like this language in your household, like let them see you talking about those things. Let them hear you using phrases about like when apologizing when you do something that hurts their feelings, or like when you're having a really bad day, be like, look, I'm having I'm having a bad day. That's okay. That doesn't mean I'm bad. That doesn't mean you're bad. It's just like, let them feel their emotions and know that that's okay. Because I think that's something that we all struggle with. Like, I think we all kind of have had to overcome, like, you know, those dark feelings, those not good feelings that sit in your chest sometimes. And everybody has their own version of that. And like, help them build coping mechanisms, help them build a foundation to go off of, so that they're not leaping off of, you know, they're not like diving off a cliff with no parachute. You're giving them, like, at least if they have no parachute, at least they have like a mattress underneath them when they fall or something. Provide them with something so that they will know how to speak about what they're feeling themselves too. Like, because I mean, you guys are teaching them how to communicate, right? And I think that's, I don't know, I think that's a really good way to build on like how to build a life, and how to build a relationship, and how to build like anything really. But that's my 2 cents.
I love it. I love it. I'm going to wrap things up. I just want to say, ladies, thank you so much for having this conversation with me, going so deep. I didn't expect it to go as deep, and I'm so grateful. And you've helped me in some of the things that I've gone through in my own mother-daughter journey by just sharing some of the experiences that you've all shared with me. Does anybody have any final thoughts that they would like to add?
No, just thank you so much for allowing us to share.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Thanks, Nicole.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Let's
Thank
go
you.
around the room. If you want to just say, hey, this is where you can find me. If you want to hear more from me or whatever, let's go around the room and tell people where you can be found and what you're doing.
All right. Well, you go first.
Yeah.
So if you want to hear more from the mother-daughter duo, specifically Kelly and Abigail, we have a podcast called The Mother-Daughter Journey, where we, like, if you thought this was deep, wait, yeah, buckle up, ladies.
Yeah. Hashtag real talk all the way.
Hashtag real talk, yes. And then we also have our Mother-Daughter Journey Facebook page and the.md.journey on Instagram. And I also am starting to stretch out and speak in schools and places where there's teens and adolescents to talk about masking and how real it is and how we move past it.
Yeah, all the things she said, and LinkedIn.
I haven't quite gotten to LinkedIn.
Yeah.
For me, you can find me on Facebook. Just look under Wendy Babcock, and my website is wendybabcockspeaks.com. Otherwise, you can connect with myself, Kelly, and Abigail at Warrior Unchained Live in September. They'll be there speaking, and Jennifer will be there with her art. So you can connect with all of us.
In person, yes.
Yep.
And Jennifer, where can people see more of your art? Because I know that I love your art. I love it. I love it. I love it. I'm trying to get some people who collect art to buy some of your art. So where can people see more of your art?
Well, actually, I have my website's down right now because I have been working on my own problems recently and kind of putting that off. But you can see my art if you are a local Mauston person. I have my art at the O-Arts Co-op in Mauston. Right when you walk in, it's right up the stairs, and it's first wall you see is my stuff.
I love it.
Jennifer's also on TikTok. So you can find her under From Scratch, where she actually will show you as she's doing some of her work, and you get to see the progress as she's working on it. It's very cool.
That is actually very cool. Well, thank you all. I'm not going to keep you much longer. I know y'all are busy, and I know that the three of you, Wendy, Kelly, and Abigail, will be live later on Facebook on Wendy's page. So I will be joining you there. And Jennifer, thank you so much for joining us in this conversation today.
Thank you for spending time listening to our conversation. If you enjoyed this and other episodes, please subscribe, like, and share so we can reach more listeners with our powerful messages. And stay tuned to hear about our affiliates and recommendations. They change from episode to episode.